Hello. Hi there. Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series. The Guiding Voice for a better future. This podcast is to help professional students, IT employees, and entrepreneurs to shape their careers. Dear listeners, in every episode, we interact with industry experts, or leaders, or coaches, or academicians across the globe to drive some insightful conversations that will help our audience learn great things. Also, we share an interesting trivia or fun fact about the IT world or technology towards the end. Thank you for tuning in. This is Naveen and with my co-host Sudhakar. So folks, the quality of self-awareness requires self-reflection. And self-reflection is the act of setting aside time, ideally every day, to quietly and honestly look at self. People also call it as introspection and also termed as retrospection. As with most of the good habits, commitment and practice helps us to improve self-awareness. And if we are self-aware, can we transform ourselves? So let us learn from our guest Shivvani how self-awareness leads to transformation.
Shivvani Rawat is an international transformational consultant, co-founder of Shining Transformation. She is a certified corporate trainer, counselor, international brand retail professional, healer, tarot card reader, intuitive guide. Her professional journey commenced with international corporate retail, where she worked as a brand manager for international brands for more than 15 years. An exceptionally creative artist, writer, singer, and dancer, she has facilitated people from all walks of life. Shivvani loves to share coaching skills through her workshops that enable real transformation in people's personal as well as professional lives. She is passionate about her work as that brings immense joy to people and her. Shivvani is a facilitator in the space of personal growth and excellence. She believes in what her father always inculcated in his children, that if we learn and evolve till our last breath and to always be limitless. Shivvani, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Naveen and Sudhakar, for this opportunity, for having me here. And it was an amazing introduction. And I must say, this is my first podcast. So thank you so much for having me here. Firstly, I would really like to acknowledge both of you for doing such an amazing work for professional students, IT employees, entrepreneurs, and just about everyone who's listening to your podcast through the Guiding Voice. Perfect name. You guys are really guiding stars. And I'm so proud of you. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Shivvani, for those wonderful words. Guests like you are actually helping us to continue this journey for long. It looks like yesterday that we started this journey and we are already at this place with more than 80 episodes that got aired. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Sudhakar and Naveen.
So Shivvani, let's get into the topic for today. How do we define self-awareness?
Okay, so before I actually talk about self-awareness, I really want to go back to almost, we can say 2,500 years back, or maybe even more. The Greek philosopher, the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, he said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And there was another famous Greek philosopher, Socrates. He said, and he advocated self-understanding and felt so strongly about it that he deemed it more important than any other prospects in life. His countrymen actually loved him for his wisdom. He thought that everyone must learn to think for himself, work on themselves. He said that the unexamined life is not worth living. I know you won't believe me, but the highest form of human excellence is the question oneself and sometimes even question others. Now, when we say that, how can we define self-awareness is when you reflect what you need to reflect. And it's important how you are reflecting. I know that's a bit mouthful. It's actually the ability to see ourselves clearly. It's to understand who we are how others see us, and how we fit into the world. Self-awareness gives us power. We might not always like what we see, but there is a comfort in knowing ourselves.
Indeed, there is always comfort in knowing ourselves. And I like the aspect that you touched upon, abilities to see ourselves clearly. Now you touched upon the advantage of one point about having that self-awareness. Why do we need to have self-awareness?
Okay, so there are actually tons of research which shows people who are self-aware and are more fulfilled, have stronger relationships, they're more creative, they're more confident, and better communicators. They're really happier because they have a higher emotional intelligence. They're less likely to lie, cheat, steal. They perform better at work, and they're more effective leaders and better job performance. In the world of self-awareness, there are actually, Sudhakar, two types of people. Those who think they're self-aware and those who are actually. And you'll be surprised what the researchers say. 95% of people think they are self-aware. But do you know how much are the real numbers?
Maybe about 1%?
Well, it's close to 10 to 15%.
Okay, that is encouraging.
Yeah. So it means 80% of us are lying to ourselves about whether we are lying to ourselves.
That is indeed mouthful, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And scary at the same time. Because you can imagine how much we don't know that we don't know about our own self. So you can imagine the challenge one has to figure out who is self-aware. And therefore, there are various tools in today's time. Actually, we are quite lucky to have various tools and even healing modalities actually that support us in today's time. So one of them I would like to introduce and is known as Enneagram. It's called the Enneagram coaching tool, and it breaks down actually the patterns of human behavior into 9 personality types that have different and yet interconnected ways of perceiving and experiencing the world, enabling us to understand some of the most important questions in life. Who am I? What am I doing? How do I think, act, and feel? How do I work on areas of my personality that I have been wanting to develop or enhance? Or how can I be more successful or satisfied in life? So these are the questions when we ask, and there is a tool called Enneagram coaching tool, and this really helps in knowing our own self and how we can, bring that shift.
That's great. I got to know about self-awareness when you mentioned that it has been in existence for 2500 years ago when Aristotle has mentioned about it. So quite astonishing. And you also mentioned one more important point. We don't know what we don't know. So now my question is, how do we ensure we know what we don't know? Like, how should one focus and develop self-awareness?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. So thinking about ourselves isn't related as knowing about ourselves. So to understand this, let's look at the most common introspective question, which is why. WHY. Why? We might be searching for the cause of a bad mood or something that didn't work out in a relationship or even at workplace, or why am I so upset after a fight with a friend or with our parents or siblings or the boss. It could be anything, and we might question our beliefs and we'll say why, but why? Or we might be even wanting to understand the negative outcome. Why did that happen? We always say that. Unfortunately, Naveen, when we ask ourselves why, it doesn't lead us to the truth about ourselves. It leads us away from it. I will just share the reason. So researchers have found no matter how hard we try, we can't excavate our unconscious thoughts, feelings, and motives because so much is hidden from our conscious awareness. We end up inventing answers that feels true but are often very wrong. Let's do a quick exercise which is based on the classic psychology study. So if I have to ask you to make a list of all the reasons your romantic relationship is going the way it has, let's let's say in general your relationship is pretty awesome, but let's pretend yesterday you had got into a huge fight about the proper way to load the dishwasher. So the man thinks, how does it matter if it's not okay? And the woman thinks, oh, he just can't operate things well at home. And before you know, you're actually thinking the relationship is not going too well. This is not going to work out. So again, asking why created alternative facts. And over time, this leads us away with time. It clouds our self-perception. But you might question if why leads us to depressed state or overconfidence and something wrong. It's probably not going to lead our self-awareness. So I'm here, Sudhakar and Naveen, and to all the folks who are listening, to tell them a little differently. Replace why with what. You might question me, how can that help? So I'll give you few examples here. An executive in a corporate received a terrible performance review from his new boss. Instead of asking, why are we like oil and water? He asked, what can I do to show her I am the best person for this job? It changed everything. It showed that polar opposite can work together. Now, I'll also give you one more example. So Mr. Shekhar, who is an entertainment industry veteran, hated his job, and instead of getting stuck and asking, why do I feel so terrible? He asked, what situations make me feel terrible and what do they have in common? He realized he would never be happy in his job, and it gave him the courage to pursue a far more fulfilling path as a wealth manager. So there are many such examples. I have just seen so many evidence that self-awareness gives us much better shot to find happiness and success in this crazy world. So to start, we just need to change one simple word, why to what. So ask what, not why. So why questions traps us, what questions moves us forward to the future.
Great tip. If you observe the surroundings, like for the last 1 year, right, the pandemic has been in existence, and we see a lot of awareness about personality development and focus on health, so on and so forth. And do you think this pandemic has also created focus on self-awareness among people? What's your take on that?
So yeah, that again is another interesting question, Naveen. Yes, it was actually indeed a very big year. So when I say big year, for most of us, there was self-awareness because, it's the only challenges that brings you to opportunities, and there's so much of hustle bustle in the world that humans really, if you see, that there is no time for them to really sit with themselves, really sit even for 15 minutes with themselves. They always want to do something. So something had to stop we humans. And so we could sit with self and reflect and really got aware of ourselves and even our behavior, if you see, especially when we are living with families and we understood. I can say even for my own self, how I behave with my own loved ones, and so many things we actually took for granted. Even the people working in our house, the cleaners and the drivers. And now there's so much of gratitude. So see, that's what even the self-awareness brought us. So if you actually see, in the unfortunate lies something fortunate in reality. So many times we also feel, oh, this is unfortunate, but there's always something fortunate. If you see even the spelling, we cut down, there is a fortunate in the unfortunate. So as human beings, we are blessed to have the ability to understand who we are, what we want to contribute, and also the kind of life we want to lead. Yes, so I really feel that in pandemic, that is what has brought us so much of self-awareness, and even work related. I think some people have even changed their profession. I am sure your guiding voice came during that time, right?
Compared to what we were doing earlier about Naveen and I visiting the educational institutions, both from B-side or technical schools. When we realized that we couldn't do it in person like we used to do earlier, that is when this concept of creating this content on a digital platform that is available and reachable to larger audience came in. Absolutely, Shivvani, you are spot on.
And you can reach out not only to the place where you can walk or travel till, but globally. You can reach out to the world.
Exactly.
So true.
Yes.
Excellent. So, Shivvani, you talked about in every opportunity, in unfortunate situations as well, we do have some positive notes that we can pick it from, right? And you talked about the unprecedented times. Human race especially has been evolving over last 2,500 years that you talked about, or furthermore, if you ask me. So, how does the self-awareness leads to that transformation journey?
Wonderful, Sudhakar. So, the search for self-awareness never ever stops. Life goes on. Wherever there has been human life, that search of self-awareness has been. And that is why if you see over so many period of decades and time and centuries, there has been development. Because there was some kind of awareness. Now it's up to us to choose, learn and grow from our mistakes and our tragedies and our successes. There's a surprising science behind it. But more than the scientific aspect, when you take a step back from all the fascinating findings, so many of us have so much of work to do. So to reach to the next level of our conscious and subconscious self. Till we don't reach the self-aware state, it won't lead to transformation or transform anything within us or outside of us. So self-awareness, if you see, is an old as humanity itself. So you can see, look at the ancient Greeks. If you see, they have carved something called Know Thyself on the temple of Apollo at Delphi. So this is actually old stuff that we should be self-aware. And even something very interesting and one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard is from Rumi, the Sufi poet. He said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself." And they also say that, when you change yourself, when you bring peace within yourself, there is peace in the world. And that is the key. So only with self-awareness would come transformation of self, transformation in the world and overall, everywhere. And that leads to even growth and freedom.
Great. This conversation has been amazing so far, Shivvani. And I think we were having little more serious conversation. So let us mix it up a bit and let us fast pace this discussion with some fun-filled rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Very much. This is interesting, Sudhakar. Wow. I didn't know this. Great. Looking forward. Wow.
Okay. So here comes the first question, Shivvani. One word that describes you.
You can say positive or proton.
Proton. Yeah, proton. That's more profound, I would say. One thing that you cannot live without.
So, we have elements of life and the elements are air, water, fire, sand. So I would say elements of life.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So Shivvani, next one is, are you a yes person or a no person?
Well, I'm actually a lot of yes person. So I would say 70% yes and maybe 30% no.
Okay, you are more an yes person then. Define life.
Oh, magical, beautiful.
Wow.
Yes, for me,
Wow.
life is magical and beautiful.
In fact, amazing, right?
Yeah.
So magical, full of surprises.
Absolutely.
And the last one in this fast-paced rapid fire round, when did you make a good friend in the recent past?
Wow, this is interesting. So I can say 6 months back.
Amazing. Thank you for being such a sport. Over to you, Naveen.
So, Shivvani, one last question for this conversation. One life anecdote that changed your perspective about it. What made this happiness alchemist start spreading positivity in the world?
Wow, that's a great question. There are so many anecdotes or so many things that we actually get attracted to, right? And I could probably give two, three, but my one which I really feel close to is believing in yourself. Just believe in yourself, irrespective whatever the world says, irrespective whatever your family and friends say. Just believe in yourself for what you want to do, and the universe will take you there. Whatever you want to become, whatever you want, it is all about just believing in yourself. Because even the things that are happening in our life, which a lot of times as humans we feel this is negative, this is not right, why is it happening with me, is only to show you, son, believe in yourself. Like God is saying, son, believe in yourself. I'm showing you this so that you can get stronger to believe in yourself. Though there are an example of a frog, but that would probably take a long time. So I would say that is something which I would say is just believing in yourself.
Please continue with that frog example. I'm sure our listeners would love to have that experience or that story to be shared with them.
I would love to, Sudhakar. So, which is, of course, I'm sure many of you would have heard this story. But there was a time when two frogs were walking together. And while walking, there was like a ditch, a deep ditch. And they fall there. And it was so deep that they could have just died. So they both are struggling to come up so that they can reach a place where, they can get stable. Now, at the same time, there were a lot of frogs which come there and they look at them and they say, no, it's better to die because, you will not be able to come up. You'll not be able to come up, it's better to just go away and die. And so though one of the frog was struggling and both of them were struggling, but one of them, he actually decided, no, it's best for me to just, die because I'm not able to do this. He just gives up. The other frog, he keeps trying, and he reaches up and he is safe. Now, at the same time, the other frogs who are there, they ask him that how come, we kept saying that it's better to die and how come you got saved? He said, because I'm deaf. I thought you were cheering me up to say that, you can do it. So that's how life is. You just have to believe in yourself. Get deaf to whatever is not serving you, because everybody comes with their own views and conditioning and their own belief system. So let them do that. But when you believe in yourself, that is your strongest belief system. And it's always said that what is that conversation that you're having with yourself is the most important conversation.
So profound example and great encouragement, positivity in such a story, right? Thank you, Shivvani, for your time today. It was indeed profound and positive about self-awareness leading to transformation. Before we conclude today's session, can you brief about your experience with the larger audience so that they get benefited with your wisdom?
Okay, so how can we make self-awareness to drive you to positivity? Now, you see, optimism is an essential commodity. It's just as a face mask in today's time and a sanitizer. Is optimism. Just wonder a world where people were not self-aware. They would not be listening, not receiving feedback or perspective, cannot empathize, blaming others for their failures. So, a famous American economist, Thomas Sowell, said, "It takes considerate knowledge just to realize the extent of our own ignorance." So, self-awareness can be defined to see ourselves clearly, to understand who we are. And we can have day-to-day habits and inculcate in our everyday lifestyle. I can give you some of the 5 habits that we can, imbibe by ourselves, and that is how you can drive it positively each day. So you can do a daily meditation just by observing your breath, and then it brings a lot of mindfulness. Second is you can turn your why into a what, like we discussed earlier. Third is you can even take a psychometric assessment. One can use Enneagram assessment also, like I said. It's one of the tools that would help you to understand yourself better. Fourth is ask family and friends for informal feedback about yourself and take it in a very constructive way. Make them feel safe. Avoid being defensive. Take notes and ask questions of what. dive deeper into your personality. Fifth is do a lifeline exercise with yourself. Sit down in a place with least distractions. Take a blank paper and pen. Starting from the day you arrived on earth, mark the major events in your life as X and Y axes. Focus on events which had big impact on you, positive and negative. Connect the dots and see what upheavals you have learned from those life lessons. This activity will give you a new perspective of life you have lived so far, and this context will be the key to developing your self-awareness.
Those are powerful tips, I would say, and definitely we are going to follow that. Thank you so much for sharing those tips, and thanks for joining us today. It was a fabulous conversation, and I'm sure these tips are not only going to help me and Sudhakar, but at large, all the audience that are listening to this episode. Thank you so much again, Shivvani.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Sudhakar, for having me here. Indeed, it was such interesting questions, and I really had fun with both of you, and it was really nice.
Excellent. So, folks, if you are enjoying this podcast, make sure to check out the other technology-related podcast, Electronics Specifier Insights. Their editors dig into the electronics industry, how the new technology is shaping in post-COVID world, reviews from all the top electronic shows, and the latest technologies that the electronic companies are releasing. You can find them by searching Electronics Specifier Insights or by going to electronicsspecifier.com/news/podcasts. Dear listeners, to know more about our speaker and the content, refer to the show notes and visit or follow us on social media. We are available on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, Twitter, Pinterest, and also on YouTube. Just search for The Guiding Voice and then follow, like, subscribe to us, and also share within your network. In addition, please feel free to email us at The Guiding Voice for You. That is THEGUIDING VOICE 4 as a digit, U as a letter at gmail.com, or WhatsApp us on India number 9494587187. That is India number 9494587187, and we will be happy to collaborate with you.
Hey Sudhakar, can you talk about the exciting opportunity of featuring our audience on this show?
Sure, Naveen. So guys, of late, we have been receiving a lot of career guidance related questions from our regular listeners through YouTube, LinkedIn comments, WhatsApp, and email, and we are responding to them on one-on-one basis. Now, we are pleased to open up a new mode of interacting with you all while providing a chance to broadcast yourself. If you have any questions related to education, career guidance, or a specific IT function, just send your voice message through speakpipe.com/theguidingvoice. We will play your question in your own voice along with the answer either from us or our expert panel in our future episodes. Hope you will utilize this wonderful opportunity.
All right, so it brings us to the trivia segment of today's episode. And today's trivia is about the most frequently used key on the keyboard. So folks, do you know which is the key that is most frequently used? Take a guess, but let me reveal the answer as per the ritual. You know, spacebar is the largest key, and at the same time, it is also the most frequently used key. So without spacebar, it will be difficult to edit anything. And according to a study, it is found that if you press spacebar, then almost 700,000 people just did the same with you. Isn't it amazing? Interesting, isn't it? Thank you for listening. There is more in store, folks. Stay tuned. Take care and be safe. Until next time, bye-bye. And we are signing off.